We now have our latest tropical system in the Western Pacific, our area towards the south of Guam continuing to develop today and moving into the Philippine Sea. And according to JMA and Pagasa, this could potentially become a typhoon prior to landfall. I'm meteorologist Robert Speta, of course, keeping a close eye on what likely will be named Rai according to JMA, Odette according to Pagasa. Remember, they do have a different naming scheme from the World Meteorological Organization, but regardless, this could become a pretty decent storm as it moves out there into the Philippine Sea, staying south of our shear line, which would otherwise disrupt it. A lot of people are asking me about that, but the thing is that shear line setting up just towards the east of Visayas, out there towards Guam, and as long as it stays towards the south of that, where likely it's going to be coming on shore into southeastern Visayas over towards northeastern Mindanao, unfortunately, that means it's going to be avoiding the worst of that shear and thus allowing this to intensify. And right now, it is still intensifying. Plenty of convection wrapping into that center of circulation. You see that here on infrared satellite imagery. Here's Guam. You got the higher cloud tops, but the big thing is just the overall circulation. That big burst of convection in the last few hours right around the center. So we may not have an eye yet, but if you got more convection in there, it's showing that upward vertical motion, an outflow aloft, thus intensification definitely taking place. Here is the official track from Pagasa outside the Philippine area of responsibility. You know, this is something they started doing after Haiyan. Remember Haiyan? They never warned on it until it hit 135 degrees east, or the Philippine area of responsibility, and there was a lot of outcry. Pagasa listened and said, you know what, even if it is outside of the Philippine area of responsibility, but it's obvious that it is going to enter and it is going to impact the Philippines, they'll start warning on it a solid day or two ahead of time. And then thankfully that is the case. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't start warning on this until Tuesday or even Wednesday. How about that? So I'm happy that Pagasa already on top of that. They won't name it until it hits 135 east, but they're already on top of this. The key thing is that they do have that landfall coming on shore there in northeastern Mindanao over towards Salgao Islands there, even though it's towards southern Leyte on Thursday early morning. Just take a look at some of the main points, though. We got the first impacts in Yap and Palau before it does impact the Philippines. JMA and Pagasa are warning on it. JMA's forecast very similar to Pagasa, with this becoming a severe tropical storm, potential typhoon prior to landfall out there into northern Mindanao, but impacts will definitely stretch off towards southern Luzon as well. So let's break down the forecast here. Now we got the forecast out of the way, the official track and the main points. Let's talk about this. Well, key thing as we go through Monday into Tuesday, here is Yap right there. There is Palau or Koror out there, the largest city on that island. It is going to be running right over them. The good news, by the time it hits these islands, still kind of at that tropical depression, or excuse me, tropical storm intensity. So plenty of rainfall, but definitely not going to be seeing crazy impacts. I know Typhoon Bofa, which also hit Mindanao back in 2012, if you remember that one, a solid 9 years ago, that actually raked over Palau and brought some pretty decent damage there. So storms this far south can cause problems out there for these southern islands, which actually get their warnings from the National Weather Service out of Guam, believe it or not. By Wednesday into Thursday, though, this does start to move into the Philippine Sea, and models are picking up, and the official guidance is picking up on what we call the Philippine Sea effect. This is a term Michael Williams coined about a few years ago now, and it's basically these warm sea surface temperatures out here. It stays away from the wind shear, and it just allows for these storms to blow right up. So the pressure is definitely going to be dropping off as we go on Wednesday and Thursday. Early morning, we're probably going to have a typhoon. Likely we'll have a typhoon on our hands as this comes on shore out here into northeastern Mindanao. So all the islands off towards the north here, you're going to be getting that right front quadrant, category 1 to category 2 type of winds, very well likely based on the current forecast. If this does intensify stronger than what the current forecast is showing, which sometimes it can do it, the winds will obviously be higher. Also, heavy rainfall in northeastern Mindanao, towards the east of Cagayan de Oro, also out towards Tacloban and in the eastern areas of Samar. That definitely is going to be bringing the problems for flooding and even landslides. This is just going to rake over the islands here, move out towards the Sulu Sea, where it could deepen even more. And if you're in Palawan, you're probably thinking, oh, I'm well to the west, I'm out of it, I'm going to miss out. not the case. This is going to be eventually impacting you. For Manila, you're probably going to see some rain bands as this kicks on by. But like I mentioned, the worst of the weather is out here towards southeastern portions of the Philippines. So let's just take a look at the winds, give you a grasp of the worst of the weather. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Siargao, out here just towards the northeast of Mindanao. You're look at that right there. The onshore wind, that is going to be some absolute messy weather. I know I got a lot of people that watch from there, and thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you are taking the storm very seriously. Because based on the current track, maybe the center line is just towards your south, but that's actually worse than if it just went over your island here, because you're going to be looking at that onshore wind wrapping around, and definitely that threat of not only damaging winds, but the chance of some storm surge in some of the bays and inlets here. Same further off towards the north. And yeah, in Tacloban, if the track does stay on track here just the way it is, you actually might be just sheltered a little bit. But the east coast of Samar, for sure going to be looking at the winds continuing to kick up here. And as we watch this roll right overhead, passing just towards the south of Cebu here as we go ahead into Wednesday afternoon into the evening, that would definitely bring the potential of that onshore wind coming on into Cebu City, not only the province there as it pushes further towards the west, and then we still got that wraparound, and then eventually it moves out there towards the Sulu Sea, heading towards Palawan. Heavy rainfall also in the forecast here as well. Let's watch this as it tracks ahead here. There comes that precipitation adding up along the eastern seaboards. This is indicating over 50 millimeters, but I do think some of these locations could see upwards of about 100 to 200 millimeters before all is said and done as that skirts on by. And that definitely could cause that threat of some flooding out here. So you can see just the east coast of Leyte and Samar, the west coast relatively drier, but all the islands here, northeastern Mindanao, even over course Cagayan de Oro, heavy rainfall for sure in the forecast. And then we're talking about waves. Surf right now, hey, if you're a surfer, get out there, catch your waves if you want to, but by Wednesday into Thursday, that rip current's going to get nasty, and these waves, I mean, look at that. That is indicating upwards of 6 to 13 meters. That's not feet, that's meters. That is sufficient, several stories high as far as those waves are concerned. I mean, that's some dangerous stuff. Stay out of the water. Know your information through official sources here. Prepare to evacuate if needed, of course, and check and prepare that are ready to, if you need to go, your emergency supplies. But I mean, here's the key thing, especially for a lot of these low-lying islands. I would not be surprised if you do. I would be surprised if you do not go at least in the signal force 3. Could it be even higher? If you are issued these, make sure, please take these warnings seriously. That was the biggest issue. Every time we see a storm in this area, Bofa comes to mind, Washi comes to mind, and of course Typhoon Haiyan. The worst of the damage and the impacts on people was because people just didn't evacuate. People decided to hold up. They didn't take the warnings seriously. Not everybody has access to warnings, so that's why I always stress for everybody on the ground there, if you have ways to just tell people there's a storm coming, at the very least. You know, just let them and make sure that they hear it. I have a family from the Philippines, and it's sometimes trying to talk to them about these storms and say, yeah, there's one coming, and they'll say, I got it from this source. No. You got to listen. Listen to those official sources and make sure they know what to do ahead of this. Anyways, big thanks for everybody out here who has been helping out on Patreon. If you guys do want to donate, just $2 a month can really make a big difference on keeping these graphics up to date and this information still flowing. Anyways, that is all for today. Thanks as always for watching. I hope you find these updates useful, and number one thing as always is stay safe out there.